We've made it through an LCQ. We've made it through groups. We've made it through part of the bracket. This is the International Pinnacle Roundtable Talks, and we kicking things off right away. Adam, what's the game, the match, the series, whatever that you remember that sticks out to you as the thing that had to be watched to experience TI so far?
LGD Biscos, probably. Ame Sven. There was some very, what's the word? High impact plays. There you go. Feel like that was the most TI vibe kind of game, where like there's just this massive fights with massive plays.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Noxville, different answer or same answer there?
Oh, that's a very good answer. But I mean, there was also an insane game with Tundra and Thunder Awaken, where because it looked like it was really bad for Thunder Awaken, and they lost barracks, and Picard's picked up a Divine Rapier, and things turned around. That was also insane. But the Ame Sven was amazing. Really enjoyed that. One of my favorite. I made a comment on Twitter about it. One of my favorite games of Sven that I've ever seen. Completely changed the game when he came in.
I'm surprised there's no answer for the RNG entity. Super long game. That was just stress the whole time.
I mean, I wouldn't even have. I would have actually gone for the Liquid Thunder Awaken series. So yeah, you're on your own with that one. Even though that was also absolutely insane.
Maybe I had the benefit of waking up to that from my time zone and turning it on and just checking in at minute 80. So that might be my investment in the game. But
yeah, I missed that game. I went to bed and I was like, I can't stay awake. I need to go to sleep, and I ended up missing that epic game. And I started getting phone calls from some missed calls, WhatsApp messages. Hey, bro, you should come online. You're missing out on something.
Right, well, that's okay. Everybody else gave different answers, so I guess you didn't miss anything. But let's go right into surprises then. Okay, so those are the games to watch for people joining us, tuning into this podcast and everything. Those are your games to go back and check out. But what were our surprise results? Because Team Spirit and LGD, I'd like to remind everybody, China was ranked very highly by our fellow podcasters. And, once again, kind of saw them struggle a little here at TI. What happened with LGD? Why are Aster finally, coming out on top of LGD?
Who's going to start? I'll start. Well, coming into this, most of the bookmakers, including Pinnacle, had better odds for RNG compared to Aster, and I thought this was a bit surprising. Aster, I felt, was a stronger team, and we'll never know because of RNG's COVID. RNG did very well until they got COVID, and then they lost every game after that. I think that was the second, or the most annoying thing or frustrating thing. However, the most surprising thing was definitely Spirits coming, top 16, only 13 through 16, along with Hikori, Fnatic, and RNG. And that was the most shocking result. LGD coming 5th or 6th was surprising. We did have them I had them as a favorite coming in. Most people, I think, did. But coming 5th or 6th is less shocking than former champions Spirit, who came in one of the top 4 or 5 teams for most people, and going out in last place. So China has taken 2 punches, but Team Aster is still in it, and they could win it. There's only 4 teams left, but they do have a journey ahead of them.
Adam, what happened to Southeast Asia, right? We were all pulling for a Southeast Asian team to make it at our first TI, right? So where did they, I don't want to say fall apart, that seems cruel, but where did they fall short?
I feel Fnatic definitely showed they can take games off anyone. I think the first day of groups they went 1-1 second day as well. They were and then towards the end, I think a lot of teams started getting better, but maybe they chose the wrong direction or wrong approach, and the other teams, they kind of got the better of them, put them in a rough spot. Talon and Boom, I feel like Boom was at its peak like maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and they had like this slow decline like we saw in ESL and as well as Gamers Galaxy Thailand, I think. And I guess they couldn't really find themselves again. Like you can tell from the way they play, they weren't as aggressive and like confident as they used to be. It might be TI as well. Talon, I'm not too sure. They look kind of okay in LCQ. Is it LCQ? No, sorry, qualifiers. They're coming in from qualifiers. 3-2 against Polaris. They had like some coach issues, I think. The first day the coach wasn't with them. They're doing okay. Second day the coach arrived and then they lost every game, I think. And then third day, it's kind of fighting for their lives. Didn't work out for them. So, there are a bunch of younger players, I would say, in Talon. Most probably the one with more new TI players compared to Boom and Fnatic. So I think all in all, no one really had expectations. And I don't know, I just feel like none of the teams really showed up this time.
So Kips, I got a two-parter for you. The first one is Southeast Asia going through a rebuilding phase right now? And do they need more time to get experience to handle TI pressure? Or was it just wrong timing this year?
I mean, about the rebuilding phase, like everything I have heard is that a really big rebuild is coming after this TI. So yeah, no matter if that is the right thing to do or not, for sure we're going to see really big shuffles. So for the second part of your question, I think SEA has shown us a lot of development in the sense that it's not just individual skill that runs supreme anymore. Like we definitely see, for example, Fnatic switching in a different pos 5, getting rid of the fact that Jabs and DJ have been carrying the same bucket this entire time and instead putting them on a lane together. Like the chemistry looks really good when it looks good. But on the other hand, I think still more needs to happen there. In terms of team spirit, they also have this individual skill thing, and normally they're able to convert that to, to really good results by making exactly the right calls at the right times, having the right players to make those calls. And I think SEA has those players that can make those calls as well, but the power structures are not enabling them right now. Then again, I do realize that taking team spirit as an example is a little bit sketchy right now.
Okay, so we've hit on most of the regions. I think the notable one that we have to talk about is South America, right? Because they crushed it, right? This is, they didn't win. They haven't been even in contention of winning for forever. But there was actually a shot this year. There was momentum behind them. Noxville, I'm sure that you've looked at stats and probabilities and everything for South America for years. Are they finally someone that across the board people will be talking about as having a chance to win? Or was this, again, lucky timing and that region still needs a ton more development?
I wouldn't say it was lucky timing. Beast Coast came top 8. They've come top 8 even before they were Beast Coast, they've come, them and Thunder Awaken have come top 8 before, or top 6 before in majors. So it isn't like a flash in the pan. But I also do think that there is something missing to get them over the final finishing line. And that's something that we haven't really seen. When we talk about the majors, there was Pain before had done pretty well in the majors and the minors. So this is the 2018-2019 season. They did pretty well. But for the most part, when it comes to these very massive tournaments, we haven't seen them carry that momentum through to the end. So there is something there that's blocking them. But fundamentally, the teams that do well and have done well have mostly been kind of the same old faces bundled up. So there's a combination of experience, both in terms of as players and on LAN. And yeah, I think fundamentally there's nothing stopping South America. It's just a question of time until they get a lucky tournament where they get through and they get big money. And their players they've shown have been on such a high caliber. I think you can make a case for Pakaz being one of the standout MVPs of any team this tournament. Had some absolutely incredible plays. And Beast Coast, yeah, they came top 8, defying expectations once again. It's just a question of now, like in a lot of regions, what does the region look like after a shuffle? South America and Southeast Asia possibly, if there was like one fewer team and there was slightly more concentration of players on the top few teams, we might see that team be able to make it further. So
Fair. So I always think about resources too, right? I think about these teams with, a mentality coach and an analyst and a strategic coach and the drafting and all of that. And so I hope that South America also gets more and more access to those resources, because we've seen Southeast Asian improvement, right, with access to additional resources. I don't know if we've seen big North American improvement with resource changes, but we don't have to talk about NA. It's fine. EG doesn't need any more shade. It's fine. We can move on from that. I cannot ignore this question. I think people who are watching are going to want to hear from Adam, who's going to have the best answer possible for this soundproofing issue, right? How much of a difference does that make on team performances? How much of an advantage does that provide? Because
sorry.
I was going to say the crowd has always been said to kind of give things away, but this was sort of another level above that. So I'm curious. Take it away with what you think there.
I think when you're being fed information that you can't see in the game, it's kind of unfair, I guess is the word. Because it shouldn't be like that. There was a mistake, they fucked up. It shouldn't be like that. I think they fixed it eventually. Day 2, day 3. I didn't hear complaints anymore. But there's no way that should happen, especially at TI. It's like the most prestigious Dota tournament of the year. It's like, I don't know, kind of fucked up, I guess.
And also, one of the things that people were talking about that was, but if everyone has access to that, everyone has the same advantage or disadvantage. And I mean, in a vacuum, that's true, but teams are playing different styles of Dota. Teams are in different positions and value things differently. Like, by the same argument, you could argue if Lone Druid were removed from the hero pool, it affects every team equally in terms of raw impact, but the overall effect is different for different teams. So if you have Koifa, Matumbaman, any of these players, Admiral, Bulldog, I'm just naming great Lone Druid players throughout time. If you have one of those on your team, you're affected way more than a team that doesn't have one of those players. So in the same way, if you're a team that's being aggressive, you're using resources to your early advantage to, for example, get a Roshan or smoke up and go make plays, and those are being mitigated by a lack of soundproofing and communication being leaked to the players, then you're at way bigger disadvantage. So one thing to just for the fans of the podcast who might be interested, there were 6 series affected by the 6 matches. 2 of them were upper bracket games, 4 lower bracket games, and I think of those 4 were upsets in terms of the betting odds. So EG losing to Thunder Awaken, one of those. Secret beating LGD. And then Boom beating Team Spirits, and Garmin Gladiators beating Fnatic. RNG versus Entity was very close because people didn't know how much COVID was going to affect RNG on the day. Oh, and that's another thing is that the casters in the arena were talking English. So if you didn't understand English, you wouldn't have understood what they were saying. But
if you only had one person on stage because the rest of your team has COVID, you have less people who can hear and process information as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, in general, I think that this is always going to be something people remember about the quality of this TI, and that's a very sad thing. especially because this represents so much money, in the prize money in a year of Dota 2. And yeah, I think there is some sadness and animosity based on this. For example, Fnatic raised a formal complaint. Well, whether or not that gets anywhere is beside the point. It's still like a sign of how shocking this incident was for the event.
Okay, so we're gonna move on from the sad reality of that. But I appreciate both of you kind of laying that out, because I think that's really important sort of context for people to understand. But let's talk about heroes. I know Kips has a little, I don't know if I'd say vendetta, but I know that she wants to talk about Lesh and whether or not that hero is super busted. Kips, is it TI5 all over again?
I mean, it's not TI5 all over again, but when both SA teams that were still in the tournament get eliminated on the same day, and both of them had first pick, and both of them could have taken Leshrac and took Marcy instead in the third games of their series, and both of them lost because Leshrac just wouldn't die. I mean, I've already said this, I think on Twitter, maybe actually one of the vlogs as well, but like this is now the Shrek's tournament, and it's funny that you said Vendetta, because before this I would have called this Nyx Assassins tournament.
Okay, fair enough. So it's not Nyx Assassins tournament anymore. I know Secret was abusing Nyx in the LCQ, right? And then I kind of saw the Nyx pick get given away a few times and then it not go well for those teams. But again, I'm the wrong time zone for this tournament. So I'm gonna let the experts who ruined their sleep schedules walk me through it.
Go for it, Adam. You first.
I feel like I'm not sure if we talked about a hero before, but I think we did mention like this hero with the Bloodstone change. It was kind of wacky. Like it's pretty unkillable, and kind of expected it to come out. And then I think I was watching LCQ and I was like, no one's picking Lash. I'm an idiot. And then playoffs happened, and Lash kind of came back, and it could also be that just comfort for Secret and Liquid, I think, who run it the most. Like Rezo likes to play this scaling offlane heroes that's like kind of can carry the game, you know, that's their play style. Mickey Lash just scales farms, you know. Nisha plays like a really good Lash too. I think the hero just feels like it does too much with too little net worth, and he also gets net worth too fast. The hero scales, there's something wrong with the graph on that hero, for sure, if he's having a good game. Top of that, I think the A and SD are also like not really played right now. The Lash killers are kind of hard to play. It feels like they're kind of slow. Lash has like a timing where he takes your map early and then he has a Bloodstone and you kind of can't counter him because he's too strong. That's also another thing on top of that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm going to disagree with Kips a little bit then on saying this isn't TI5 all over again, because that was Lesh's strength then as well, was scaled way too fast, farmed. That was the big thing with Lesh, was that the farm was, you couldn't do anything about it because he just consumed resources so quickly. But Ponlo's not here, okay? But let's throw a little dig at...
you can still blame him. Even though he's not here, you can always still blame him.
Knoxville, where's the bounty hunter? Where's the tinker? Did they get picked? Did they get banned? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, we all were gonna. I mean, that was all Ponlo. And that was not. I would like to say that was Ponlo's insight, his strategy, and yeah, he's not here to defend himself, which is even more justifiable that we blame him. I think that the bounty hunter was something Adam also said that he'd seen in certain pub metas.
Ricky Bounty,
Yeah, and it was just something that like hasn't percolated through. There was also talk about Ricky, which we did see one game.
Yeah, it was a carry though. Yeah,
as a carry. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. What would you like me to talk about some more? I'm not going to talk about Bounty Hunter or Tinker. The most notable Tinker player got eliminated. That was nothing to say without revealing that. I can talk a little bit about this Leshrac. Is that the hero I thought that was going to have the highest win rate was Pudge. because it just seemed like one of those gotcha picks,
Yeah.
third phase picks. And it is doing very well, by the way. It is at like 58%. So of the heroes which have been picked like 25 or more times, there's 32 of them. It is like ninth. But 58% is still a very reasonable win rate given the sample. But going back to what you said about Leshrac and tying this together is, the question is, whenever a hero does well, is you asking, is the hero the strength, or is it the teams that are picking the hero that are strong, and it just forms part of their like coherent lineup? And I think Leshrac is actually little bit of both. And the same with Pudge, is that the teams that like it are the teams that are doing well, and some of the teams that are not doing well with Pudge are the teams that are just trying to like copy the teams that are doing well. But if you look through the top couple of picks, a lot of these have been discussed as talking points on the panel and during casts. There's Crystal Maiden, 62 picks, 61.3% win rate. Brood Mother, one of those excellent heroes, last phase gotcha pick. Zai played that incredibly well. We've seen a variety of people play it incredibly well, but it's up there. There's the Nyx Assassin, which we discussed earlier. There is the Tusk, which was one of those, if you watched any of the games, Tusk is one of those like, kind of like the true MVPs, but they're always like keeping low key. They are able to save your cause from impossible situations. Very strong roaming early on. And then on top of that, there is another support in the form of Disruptor. Also, very strong hero. The ultimate, Ag's upgrade that you get from it, very strong. Nyx Assassin we discussed, Lifestealer, and Nagasa. And these are the heroes which are all above Pudge. Those like the top 10, 9 or 10 heroes based on win rates alone. And yeah, I think that this has been a very interesting TI so far, and it's such a wide open pool that we could basically see almost anything in the last 4 matches.
Kips, when we talked about heroes, we also talked about meta, right? The pace of the game, when teams needed to close things out, timings, all of that. Now the heroes, some expected, some unexpected. That's TI. That always happens. We can't let Noxville's compendium predictions be that good, right? That's not okay. We can't give him free compendium wins. But Kips, for pace of the game, for what we expected from the meta for when teams should be finishing out, did that change significantly, or are we still seeing the same heavy brawling and have to win several fights before you take objective, right? Are we seeing the same pace, or did that also shift pretty significantly?
No, I think we see the same pace, and I think we've actually seen it confirmed that it's very important to keep this pace as well. 2 of the teams that people thought would be doing better, namely EG and Entity, are 2 examples of what happens when you don't actually understand the pace of the meta fast enough. Like, both of these teams understood that you play with scaling cores, ideally 1 aura builder and like 2 DPS cores. You do a physical and a magical damage, for example, or double mixed damage cores. But both of them really went too greedy about it, and as a result got quite unceremoniously dumped out of the tournament when both of them were actually in a decent position after the group stage, and especially in a very decent position skill-wise.
Fair enough. So heroes change, meta stays, teams don't close out the games at the right time. It's rough for them.
Yeah.
Any other?
Can I just jump in with a point there? Is that something I was looking at up until now, like because we've got this gap, is just been like the average time in wins for the teams, and at the bottom are teams like BetBoom, Entity, Sonics, Fnatic, Hikori. Those are the teams that, okay, we didn't expect Entity to be doing so badly, but they've kind of crashed and burnt. And BetBoom are a team that had got a significant advantage in many games and threw it away. Something like 4 times they had a 10k gold lead that they went on to lose. And then on the other extreme, the team that is the fastest is somewhat surprisingly Evil Geniuses, who, sure, they had a great group stage, and then they crashed and burnt out of the tournament 0-4 in playoffs. But, Spirit also, they have the second fastest average win time, which is 35 minutes and 8 seconds. And then following them is LGD, Asta, Secret, Beast Coast, Tundra. These are the teams that have all basically come towards the top. And part of that is because they've won so many more games and they've just sealed the deal. But part of it is also that they understand that when they have a lead, they don't want to dilly-dally. They want to go high ground and take a lane of racks. Because in the past, always 2 lanes of racks is like when the first nail in the coffin, and when the third lane of racks goes down, that's the final nail in the coffin. At the moment, it's like you just want to get that first lane of racks, just get that done. You have to get that done while you have an advantage, because it's so hard to go high ground now. It just seems it seems almost impossible to breach against some of these lineups. And these are the teams which did a really great job of it. And unfortunately for some of them, they got knocked out too quickly for them to carry that forward.
Noxville, I noticed when you were listing out those timings, I heard Tundra, Aster, Secret all in there as being, pretty fast to finish. Was Liquid in there? Did I miss it? Where are they sitting in that list? Because that's 3 out of our top 4 that I heard.
Yeah, they actually they were more middle of the pack, 40.5 minutes on average in win time, which is kind of like right in the middle of the middle 2 of the 20 teams that we've seen at TI 11.
Okay, so that's gonna be this beautiful. Thank you for the lovely transition into. We still have games left. We still have these top 4 teams. Adam, does that not bode well for Team Liquid that they're taking a little longer to finish the game? Is that going to give these other teams that they face up against, I mean, the first up will be Aster, is that going to give Aster too much of an opportunity to sort of come back and flip a game around if they end up behind?
I think in Team Liquid's case, even though their average was longer, I think they were kind of struggling in LCQ. And they made it out. And when it came to group stage, they they grew immensely as a team. And I think the Liquid that's playing now is kind of evolved. Like they're much cleaner, and they're making good decisions. Like I think I talked to Ben about Boxy. I think he was really not performing in LCQ, but I think in playoffs he looked like one of the best players on the stage. And I think the teams that I feel like these long tournaments are about who can evolve and who can stay ahead. That's kind of why the teams that do well are usually kind of from the underdogs, I would say, especially this TI. You have a lot of SA teams doing well, and I think I would favor Liquid a bit more. I think Secret and Aster I think Liquid's the dark horse here compared to the other 3 teams, because I think the other 3 teams, they kind of have a more of a set identity in the way they play.
You picked the team with a horse logo as your dark horse. I would like to just make sure that we know. Kips, do you feel like your territory is being encroached? Come on, you did charades to pick Liquid as your dark horse, didn't you?
So yeah, Liquid have totally come through for me. They have gone above and beyond. I am very proud of them. I ran up to the stage when they won that last game to put them into the top 4, and I think I greatly annoyed a bunch of camera people with how tall I was. Did not care. The only thing I wish now is that I would have gone with my gut and said Aster for my favorite for the tournament instead of banking on Team Spirit, who have sorely let me down. But yes, the potential for Team Liquid was always there. They've always had the skill in the players, and in that regard, it's exactly the same as for Fnatic. There was always an option that they would hit flow and come through. And in this case, I guess both I and they got lucky. Well, they have 3 coaches. I'm not sure how much luck that is as opposed to just investment. But yeah, they have gotten on top of their struggles. They've gotten on top of the meta. They play pretty much everything that's winning a lot right now. They know how to use Naga, they know how to use the Lone Druid, they know how to use the Leshrac. And I think they have a great shot of making it to the finals.
I need to ask, I need to go back, jab a little more. In one of our early podcasts, we said when we were talking about the groups, which group was stronger, how that looked and everything, the general consensus was that these LCQ teams, that the LCQ was a different arena, that Secret and Liquid would probably struggle in the group stage, and that, you know, the groups were just a different caliber compared to LCQ, so we couldn't know anything about these teams. Now, we've talked about what Liquid has, right, and why they're the dark horse pick. Kips just went in a little about Aster. Adam, you don't seem to believe in Secret. You don't think that maybe is it that they're not learning fast enough? Is that is that the summary of how you're feeling about Secret, that you think they'll fall short because they're not going to adapt quickly enough?
No, I think Secret has. I think they have their formula of how they play. You know, like it's very clear what they're doing. Zayak enables Rezo. Rezo kind of plays like a heavy farming core, Lesh Mirana, something. Crystallis will play some like kind of off lane, not really off lane. You know, Puppey's on Greedy, Nisha's on like a carry. You know, like it's there for you to figure it out if you can figure it out. Like I'm sure there are a lot of things they're doing that is beyond what I say or what I can even see. Like they're top 4 TI, you know, they have to be doing something right coming in from LCQ. And I wouldn't say that I don't favor them, but I think I feel like the 4 days break is gonna influence these teams that have like they're stuck, you know. And you know, I think the big advantage they had coming in from LCQ, like to Liquid and Secret, is that they got to play so many games. So it's 4-day break kind of like it's really weird, and I think it will impact how the teams play.
Noxville, we always kind of make jokes, make comments about how Puppey isn't the most flexible of drafters, right? Sometimes he gets a little stuck on his ideas. So these 4 teams have 4 days to watch their opponents' games, watch who they won and lost against, absorb everything from this TI so far, and learn from it and adjust. Is Secret's strength going to be that they know how they're playing and that they stick with it? Or will that end up being a weakness that all the other teams can exploit? Or third option, they come out of these 4 days with some completely new idea because Puppey's messing around in demo mode and finds something broken, right? Like, where are you placing your bet on those 3 situations?
I think they're going to come out and they're going to stick to their guns. I think that in general, I agree with the idea that Puppey's always been very stubborn in his ideas, because the way in which this happens in a variety of games, whether it's Dota or Magic the Gathering or whatever it may be, that they are like people who define the meta. So there's like meta leaders, and then there are 2 other types of views you can take to it. You can either be something which specifically is anti-meta, so you don't care about everything else. All you're trying to do is beat what is deemed good. And then there is another thing which is trying to redefine what the meta is. So you're trying to find something that's not necessarily better than what the current most popular style is. You're trying to forge your own style, and you think that as a result, like on average, that'll lead to like a stable outcome that's better than what it is. Puppey has always been part of the first and the third category. He's either trying to optimize his current idea, and he believes that that can be the most effective, or he has an idea which is tangential, and he will by himself almost shift the meta. So that comes across often as stubbornness. Like classic example of this was Starladder a couple of years ago. He was playing against Arteezy. He was playing against EG. Arteezy was on EG, and he refused to ban Lycan, despite Lycan being like one of the most in-meta heroes at the time, and it could beat him. Now the idea is, if he beats the hero when they have it, then he is at such a huge advantage and they will feel lost. Like their primary strategy no longer works, and now Secret don't have to ban this hero against him. If it doesn't work, it's just a game lost. So he's using games as like a resource to learn. I think in these 4 days, though, the problem is that people are going to have lots of time to work out how to beat him, whereas he is not going to be evolving and leveling up against them. So I think that this is going to be maybe a cop-out, but I feel like this is going to hurt Secret a lot. And in general, I'm going to put more of my money on the I think it was the first option you gave, which is that he's going to stick to his guns. He's going to be stubborn, whatever that means in terms of like he's going to feel confident in his strategies that have got him this far, not just in this tournament but in his career.
And that brings us to the last team that we haven't talked about, which is Tundra, who Secret will be facing in the upper bracket, right? Secret have the opportunity to be stubborn and use games to learn, lose, and then hopefully get it knocked out of them. They have that opportunity. Is Tundra set up to actually hand Secret that loss, right? They were kind of this favorite, but that we also hadn't seen play that much. And now, we're seeing them do incredibly well. Kips, what are your feelings on Tundra taking on Secret right now? Can they punish Secret's predictability?
Yeah, so the question for me is if Team Secret belongs to the group of teams that have been studying Tundra all year, because that's what everybody else has been doing, from like Eastern Europe all the way over to South America. Like a whole bunch of people have been watching Tundra and copying since the start of the year, because they were the strongest team coming into this season and remain so for at least half of that. They are in some ways responsible for this entire meta. If you, I could go on and on about this. Anyway, if Secret studied them as well, then at the very least they can look for the strengths that they themselves have and see which match up the best. Because ultimately Tundra hasn't changed that much either, and they have been much more in the picture than Team Secret, who played sort of the same style as this before, but their players were just less reliable. And in that regard, I think the fact that Puppey's players, like especially Chrysalis, just stepped up, but the Zayat's Rezo chemistry is going as strong as ever. Nisha looks really good. I'm not sure if Secret is really the ones that are going to have been studied the most. This is very much a knowledge matchup here, and I would be putting my money behind Secret just because their leveling up has been unpredictable, whereas Tundra played like this before.
Interesting. That almost sounds, though, like Secret would then be facing a pretty heavy disadvantage in the grand finals. If someone can't hand them a loss, they struggle. And I don't know. I feel like there's always this inherent bias coming through me towards Secret because I've always wanted to see them win one with all of their era of dominance for so long, and they never seem to get it together at TI. So I'm almost hoping Tundra knocks them down so that they learn from it. But that's bias coming from me. Aster versus Liquid is our other matchup. Adam, you picked Liquid as the dark horse here, but then Aster as your overall winner, right? That was I'm not remembering wrong from all of 5
No, I
minutes ago
didn't.
with the
I
goldfish
didn't
train.
pick an overall winner.
Okay,
Only Liquid Dark Horse.
got it. Who's your overall winner then, right? Because if it's not Aster, Tundra. Okay, so you think Tundra will take down Secret?
Yeah, I am not sure, but I think it'll be a good game. I think that, the thing that interests me the most between both these teams is they are teams that focus on the map a lot. Like, I think that's the biggest difference between Tundra and a lot of teams they play. I think Secret's like the closest to them in terms of map efficiency, I would say. So yeah, it's quite an interesting matchup.
So Adam has picked Tundra. Kips, give us your overall pick. I got a bigger question for Noxville, so I got to get your overall win pick confirmed. Make sure that I remember it this time.
Oh, that hurts. I mean, there's good arguments to be made for every single one of these teams. I think the highest peak belongs to Liquid. Like, but ultimately, I don't know. I don't know if that's enough. I'm gambling here. I'm gonna throw my money behind Secret. I would love to see them win. I think Matumaman has a good retirement story now. Would be nice if he won, but I'm Puppey getting another TI win. That would be amazing.
Okay, Noxville, remind us again, in your compendium, who did you pick as the overall winner?
I had LGD. I went just with, I think that like the stats I had was like LGD's got 30% chance to win, which I mean, that also means that LGD has 70% chance not to win. So yeah, it wasn't like they were super dominant in that regard. But yeah, I did not suspect that these would be the final 4 teams, and I think it's kind of surprising for most people. But of the teams that are remaining, I probably would say that I think Secret is a team I would like to see win, and I would kind of back. Although, like has been said before, you can make a convincing case for all of these teams. You know, Chandra's got one of the coaches who has won a TI and is one of the smartest thinkers in Dota in the form of RE2000. Aster has got Lanham, who's one of the possibly one of the players who most deserves a TI win and hasn't got one. And who else have we got? And then we've got Liquid, who has 2 of the greatest players, one of which is retiring, and that's. I mean, this is not a disrespect to Boxy and Sania and McKay, but Matumaman and Zai are like all-time like greats in the game. And then obviously Secret's got Puppey, who's. I mean, if Puppey were to win this, I think he already is the GOAT for many people, but there are arguments that he's not the GOAT in the form of 2-time winners OG, or Kuraki is also one of the GOATs. So he's definitely in that like short list, but I think a win here over a career that's lasted so long would cement him as perhaps the GOAT. And maybe that's a bit contentious to say, but that's just how it rolls. I do have a funny fact, is that if we do see Secret lose to Sandra and Liquid win against Asta, or if they were to meet in the grand finals, Puppey has more experience with the players on Liquid than he does his own team, because he has such experience with Matumaman and Zai, and that works both ways. They have super huge experience with him as well, but it just speaks about the teams that have always done well in the Western sphere have all kind of revolved around Puppey, and whether it's No Tails, whether it's Fly, whether it's Zai, Arteezy, Kuro, Matsumaman, these are all people who played with Puppey, and he has some mental advantage, I think, just in the experience that he brings to the table in that regard. He's in your head, Charles.
That begs the question that is sort of the last topic of discussion for us for this podcast, I think, is 3 out of these 4 teams are West EU teams, right? So the Pinnacle odds for before TI for region winners, Eastern Europe was 5.38, Western Europe was 2.50 for odds, right? So Western Europe obviously favored, but this is 3 out of 4 teams. Puppey has created, influenced, worked with all of these different Dota legends, all of these TI winners, and you can trace it back to almost starting under him. A lot of people have talked about Secret as they've sort of, Puppey has sort of been the training camp for creating champions, but he hasn't won another Aegis since TI won. Why is Western Europe 3 out of 4 teams? Is it because of Puppey's legacy and so much training and so much history? I mean, China should have the same history, and we have Aster there, but what is the reason 3 out of 4 teams are all from one region?
Get him,
Go for
Ben.
it, Adam. I mean, I think it was a lack of luck this year. Asta could still win. Asta is a very respectable team. They have, they have solid players on their team. I would not say there's a huge weak link. But I would say the RNG being sick and LGD, the way LGD fell was, let's say for example Secret win this and they go to the grand finals. LGD lost essentially to Secret and then to Beast Coast in a very exciting series. I mean, possibly one of the most exciting series that we've seen. Sorry. I mean, they lost to Asta. They had a very close series with Beast Coast, and then they lost against their fellow teammates, countrymates, Asta. And Asta kind of had them worked out. So it's like you lose against potentially the other strongest team, and Asta are a team who know you and have all this knowledge about how you play. And potentially, I mean, they also were in different groups in the group stage. So potentially scrim partners. We don't know who they were scrimming behind the scenes, but I would say that it was very unfortunate for LGD if Asta make it all the way and then LGD are knocked out in the playoffs, they could have basically lost to the best and second best team in the tournament. And that's always what feels bad when you go back and you think about it like that.
I have no answer for you. There's better. I think if you compare them to like the lower half of the TI teams, I would say there's much more strategy in their gameplay and the way they approach their game. I think that's a significant difference. Like they have a style of how they look and view and play Dota. And I think other than that, there's like half the teams that we expected to do better not really performing. LG didn't really perform, OG didn't really perform, NTT, RNG, they don't look too hot. Liquid and Secret didn't look too hot. They had like their warm up, they came in going ham. Tundra, who has not been seen in the past, I think since Arlington, came in. They look really good too. Esther did not look too hot, but they kind of like caught their stride again. And I think like it just comes down to the maybe top 8, them being the better 4 of the top 8 teams, if that makes sense.
I think that's our summary, right? So Adam has no idea why you're upset there. Ben says, you know what, it's pure luck, clearly.
I will say that anyone who puts 5.38s on Eastern Europe was having a laugh, because I didn't really have very much. I mean, other than Spirits, I didn't really have very much confidence in any team there. So if you're betting just on Spirits, it's always a bit risky. Whereas China, Western Europe represented multiple teams that could do well, and yeah, generally when it comes to these tournaments, the difference in skill between the teams come together when they boot camp for so long. A lot of these teams were practicing for a week in their own region and then 2 weeks in Singapore, or the other way around, 2 and then 1. So very extensive boot camps. The patch is kind of stable, small changes here or there. Generally, you expect it to get much closer than previous tournaments, and that's really what we saw here. Was a lot of the teams that we felt would be close around were making upsets. There were so many games where before the tournament, or if you had to make all the predictions before the tournament, you'd say 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, and a lot more in the groups where we saw it go 1-1, 1-1, 1-1, and the teams started learning about each other, and then we get to the playoffs and it's the other way around, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, and very few 2-1s. And yeah, that's a disaster for my companion prediction on number of games in the main bracket, the playoffs, because so many of the games were decided by the individual teams that are matched up against each other.
Yeah, I actually have something to say about that as well. I have heard, this was on day 3 of the playoffs, that there was a madman who still had the bracket correct. I have not heard an update since, but I imagine that's no longer the case.
We had, what was the TI where only one person out of everybody got the bracket right?
I don't know about the whole bracket. Tier 7?
It was 6 or 7.
6, someone had it right as of day, like midway through day 4. Because they were like, we're going to give this guy all expenses.
Yeah, the next TI, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think TI 7, someone made it to like day 5. So, yeah, I'm just surprised
got the whole thing right.
I feel like it was TI 6.
I think it was 7 because I worked at TI 6 at the event, and I remember they announced it that they announced 2 parts. One was the person got all right up till a point, and then they were like, okay, now they've made a mistake. So I feel like that was TI 6. But I'm just surprised that they got even the first round of lower brackets. Like Beast Coast versus Sakori, I think was a reasonable bet. But Boom versus Spirits, getting the 50-50 rights of RNG Entity, Garmin Gladiators versus Fnatic, like these all seem like 60-40s at best. Maybe 50, like even if it's 50-50, that's 1 out of 16 people are getting it right. Must have been an SEA fan to put Boom above Team Spirit, right?
All right, well, Noxville's compendium predictions are a disaster. You can always comment, nudge him a little if your predictions are going well. Let us know if you're one of the people who has a great bracket. If you've been listening this whole time and wondering what the heck is going on and who are these people, I am your host, Reinessa, who is really just here to ask these analysts what is going on. Noxville is the owner of all of the stats. Make sure you credit him. Adam, aka 343, so much Southeast Asian experience, knows everything there, and is our agent in place to make sure that Ponlo feels all the shame for predicting Bounty Hunter Tinker. And the wonderful Bear, which may or may not have some Photoshop on it, I'm not sure. That is Kips. She is on site, ready to go, joining us with the lovely hotel internet. So we super appreciate her fighting through that. You have been watching the International Pinnacle Roundtable Talks. We hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you enjoy TI. Have fun, everyone.